Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your entire life savings is now worth less than a loaf of bread. Not because you spent it, not because it was stolen, but because your country printed so much money that the money itself became useless. There was once a time in history when people needed wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy groceries. Not thousands, not millions, but trillions. And yet that money was still worthless. This is the story of the most useless currency ever created, the Hungarian pengo. Most people believe money has value, but the truth is that money is just paper and ink. Its real value comes from only one thing: trust. Trust that tomorrow that piece of paper will still buy something. But what happens when that trust disappears? What happens when prices double every single day? This is exactly what happened in Hungary after World War II, creating the worst hyperinflation in human history. To understand how this disaster began, we need to go back to Europe in 1945. World War II had just ended. Cities across the continent were destroyed. Factories were gone. Entire economies had collapsed. Hungary was one of the countries hit the hardest. Railways were destroyed. Industries had stopped working. Millions of people were struggling just to survive. The government faced a massive challenge. They needed money to rebuild the country, but they didn't have enough of it. So they turned to the fastest solution possible. They printed more money. At first, it seemed like a reasonable solution. More money meant more spending. More spending meant economic recovery. But something dangerous began happening. Prices started rising. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. Soon, the entire financial system started to break down. By 1946, Hungary's inflation was completely out of control. Prices were doubling every 15 hours. If a loaf of bread cost 100 pengo in the morning, it could cost 200 by the afternoon and 400 by the evening. People rushed to spend their money the moment they received it. Waiting even a few hours could mean losing half its value. But then something even more unbelievable happened. The government started printing larger and larger banknotes. Thousands, millions, billions, then trillions. Eventually, the government printed a banknote worth 100 quintillion pengo. That is a number with 20 zeros. But even that was not enough to keep up with inflation. At the peak of the crisis, money had become almost completely useless. Workers were paid multiple times per day. Families rushed to spend their salaries immediately before prices rose again. Shops stopped using price tags because prices changed too quickly, and people began abandoning money altogether. Instead, they started trading goods directly: food, clothing, tools. These items became more valuable than the currency itself. In some cases, people even burned banknotes to heat their homes because the money was literally worth less than firewood. An entire country where money had become useless. But the situation became even more extreme. The Hungarian government introduced a new unit of money called the adó pengo. Its value changed constantly in an attempt to keep up with inflation, but even that could not stop the collapse. By the end of the crisis, inflation had reached an unimaginable level. Prices were doubling every 15 hours. This created an annual inflation rate of around 41 quadrillion %. It remains the highest inflation rate ever recorded in human history. Eventually, the government realized there was only one way to stop the disaster. They had to completely replace the currency. In August 1946, Hungary introduced a new currency called the Hungarian forint. Overnight, the old pengo became worthless, the most useless currency in history. This story might sound like something from a distant past, but the lesson behind it is incredibly important. Money only works if people trust it. If you want to understand how money really shapes the world and how the global financial system works, subscribe to Global Money Explained, because the story of money is the story of power.